Have you ever noticed how sometimes, when you finally stop talking, when you finally stop explaining, defending, or softening your tone for the comfort of others, that's when they panic? Not when you yelled. Not when you cried. Not even when you said, "I've had enough," but when you said nothing. When you gave them the silence that could slice through every pretense in the room. A silence so powerful it spoke the truth louder than any words could. That's when they suddenly called. That's when they suddenly remembered you existed. That's when they started to question everything, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. And that's the paradox of the INFJ's silence. It doesn't create confusion. It reveals it. Because when an INFJ goes quiet, the entire emotional frequency in the room changes. It's not just quiet, it's a storm contained. It's the withdrawal of energy, understanding, empathy, and connection. And people feel it, even if they can't name it. So today, let's dive deep into why your silence as an INFJ makes people panic. Why people who once ignored your pain suddenly feel anxious when you stop responding. Why your quiet isn't passive, it's transformative. And why, in a world of noise, your silence becomes the mirror that forces others to face themselves. 1. Your silence breaks their control. Let's begin here. The truth that most people don't want to admit. Many people feel safe around you because you make emotional space for them. You listen when no one else does. You absorb chaos and translate it into compassion. You hold their storms with your calmness, and they get addicted to that sense of emotional stability. So when you suddenly withdraw, when your tone goes neutral, your replies stop coming, and your energy detaches, they lose their anchor. They panic because your silence is a kind of power they can't manipulate. They can't guilt-trip silence. They can't argue with silence. They can't decode silence, especially when it's coming from an INFJ, whose energy they once depended on without even realizing it. Deep down, they sense that your quiet means something shifted. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's you reclaiming emotional sovereignty. And that's terrifying for anyone who relied on your empathy as their emotional crutch. Your silence says, "I see you clearly now, and I no longer need to explain myself." And that sentence, unsaid but felt, is the very thing that shatters their illusion of control. 2. Your energy speaks louder than words. For an INFJ, silence isn't empty, it's charged. Because you don't just communicate through words, you communicate through energy, presence, and emotional frequency. When you go silent, it's not the absence of sound, it's the withdrawal of warmth, understanding, and emotional validation that people unconsciously depended on. Imagine being the person who always felt safe around you, and then one day, that emotional warmth disappears. Suddenly, they feel like they're standing in a room where the lights just went out. The silence becomes unbearable, not because of ego, but because they can feel your detachment on a soul level. That's why people panic. Because your silence exposes just how much they relied on your light to feel okay. They never realized it until it was gone. INFJs, your silence is sacred, but to those who lived off your emotional energy, it's a kind of punishment that they don't understand but can't ignore. 3. Silence is your final language. INFJs don't go silent for no reason. You go quiet after you've spoken, explained, reasoned, forgiven, and overextended. Your silence doesn't come from impulsive anger, it comes from deep exhaustion. And that's what makes people panic, because they can sense that your silence isn't temporary. It's final. You've detached from the emotional web. You've observed the situation from your higher intuitive vision and decided, this doesn't serve my peace anymore. People panic when you go silent because they know, even if subconsciously, that you're not coming back the same. And that realization creates fear. Because INFJs rarely walk away in loud chaos. They walk away quietly, but completely. Your silence becomes the full stop at the end of a sentence that they didn't realize was finished. 4. Your silence forces them to face themselves. When you were communicating, they could hide behind your compassion. They could project, blame, twist, and justify, and you, in your empathy, would always find a way to understand. But when you stop talking, they're forced to sit in their own words, their own actions, their own discomfort. Your silence becomes a mirror. And for people who've built their self-worth on external validation, that reflection is unbearable. They start to ask themselves, did I go too far? Did I lose them? Why aren't they reacting? And for the first time, they can't escape accountability, because your silence doesn't let them. That's why INFJ silence is so unsettling. It activates people's guilt, insecurities, and unresolved shame. Because your absence of response means they can't manipulate the narrative anymore. You've stopped playing the emotional game, and in doing so, you've revealed the truth of it. 5. You're not silent, you're observing. When INFJs go silent, it's not because they've checked out. It's because they're processing, deeply, intuitively, and emotionally. You're watching patterns, noticing energy shifts, reading between the lines. You're gathering all the data your intuition has been picking up but hasn't yet named. And that quiet observation, that stillness, unnerves people. Because they can feel that you see more than you say. They know you're reading them. Not their words, but their intentions. And that makes them uncomfortable. People panic because silence from someone who sees is not passive. It's profound. They can sense your inner knowing, that mysterious, intuitive gaze that doesn't judge but discerns. Your silence is your analysis mode. And when people sense that, they feel exposed, as if you've already seen their truth and are simply waiting for them to catch up. 6. Your silence removes their power to hurt you. People who feed on reactions, whether emotionally manipulative, narcissistic, or simply insecure, thrive on your emotional engagement. As long as you're responding, they feel significant. But when you withdraw and respond with silence, they lose that supply. Your silence says, you no longer have access to my emotional world, and that makes them panic. Because now they realize, they never had real power over you. They only had the illusion of it. And that illusion crumbles when you stop reacting. INFJs, your silence is not weakness. It's an act of emotional mastery. It's you reclaiming your peace and protecting your energy from people who drain it without care. 7. Your silence feels like rejection, but it's protection. Here's the irony. People who hurt you often interpret your silence as rejection. But what they don't understand is that your silence isn't punishment. It's protection. You're not rejecting them, you're protecting your soul. You're choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and healing over endless explanation. But because they're used to emotional availability from you, your withdrawal feels like abandonment. It triggers their attachment wounds, and that's where the panic begins. They suddenly try to reconnect, apologize, or provoke you, anything to pull a reaction from you. But INFJs know. Once peace becomes more valuable than connection, silence becomes your sanctuary. You're not punishing anyone, you're preserving yourself. And that preservation, to those who benefited from your openness, feels like punishment. 8. Your silence disrupts their ego. Many people interpret your empathy as weakness, until you go silent. That's when they realize your silence is strength wrapped in restraint. Because when you stop explaining, you remove their ego's favorite weapon, the argument. People who thrive on control or dominance rely on you to engage emotionally so they can maintain the illusion of superiority. But when you go quiet, you disarm them completely. They start to question themselves, not because they've changed, but because they can't find the emotional handle to control you anymore. Your silence destabilizes their ego because it breaks the cycle of reaction that kept them powerful. And that's why they panic. Your silence doesn't just quiet the noise, it exposes the emptiness behind it. 9. Your silence is mysterious and unpredictable. INFJs are mysterious even when they speak, but when you go silent, that mystery deepens. People can't read you, can't predict you, and can't categorize you. And that unpredictability terrifies people who crave control. Your silence creates a psychological vacuum, a space where they project their fears, guilt, or insecurities. They start imagining worst-case scenarios. Are they mad? Are they done with me? Are they planning something? They panic not because of what you might say, but because they can't anticipate what comes next. In a world where people overshare and overreact, your calm unpredictability becomes unnerving. Because silence from someone emotionally intelligent feels like a storm that hasn't yet broken. 10. Your silence feels like karma. INFJs rarely seek revenge. You don't need to. Because your silence itself is karmic. It makes people sit in the very energy they once projected onto you. If they dismissed you, now they feel ignored. If they made you feel invisible, now they're invisible to you. If they took your empathy for granted, now they realize what life feels like without it. And that realization hits harder than any confrontation ever could. Because INFJs don't destroy people with anger, they awaken them through absence. Your silence becomes their lesson. And that's why they panic, because deep down, they know they're the reason for it. 11. Your silence symbolizes completion. Every INFJ knows this truth. You don't end connections lightly. You end them when your intuition tells you the lesson is complete. And your silence is how you close the energetic door. People panic because they can feel that finality, even if you never say it. There's a spiritual weight to your silence. It's the sound of endings. And endings frighten people who aren't ready to face change. But for you, silence is peace. It's the quiet after the storm, not emptiness, but release. When you go silent, it's not because you stopped caring. It's because you finally accepted that caring alone won't fix what's broken. 12. Your silence exposes their dependence on you. When you were present, people thought they were strong. They thought they could handle life on their own. But when you went silent, they realized it wasn't just your words they needed. It was your energy. Your ability to calm, to validate, to understand without judgment. They panic because your silence exposes their dependence, emotional, psychological, sometimes even spiritual. You were the one who made them feel seen. And now, without you, they're left with the truth of their own emptiness. INFJ, your silence shows them who they are without your light, and that revelation is often too much to bear. 13. Your silence makes them feel small, because it reminds them of your depth. You don't use silence as a weapon, you use it as wisdom. But people who live on the surface can't comprehend that. They interpret silence as rejection, when in truth, it's reflection. They see it as indifference, when in truth, it's discernment. They panic because your silence reminds them of your emotional depth, a depth they can't match, but once fed on. And now, standing before your quiet strength, they feel small, not because you diminished them, but because they refused to grow. Your silence shows them the gap between where they are and where they could be, and that realization can shake even the strongest ego. 14. Your silence is your healing. At the deepest level, INFJs go silent not to punish others, but to heal themselves. Silence becomes your therapy. It's where you release the noise of others' expectations. It's where you listen to your soul again. It's where you find God, intuition, peace, and truth, all whispering in that sacred quiet. But people who once thrived on your energy can't stand to see you in that self-contained peace. Because your silence proves you never needed them the way they thought you did. And that's the ultimate reason they panic. Your silence reveals your independence, your strength, your peace. It says, I have nothing left to prove, and nothing left to fight for. It says, I've come home, to myself. So yes, INFJ, they panicked. Not because you were cruel. Not because you played games. But because your silence did what your words never could, it revealed the truth. Your silence shows who values your peace and who only valued your presence. It separates those who loved your soul from those who loved your energy. It protects your spirit while exposing the intentions of others. Silence is not weakness. It's emotional wisdom. It's how you speak without speaking. It's how you teach without preaching. It's how you rise, without making a sound. Because when an INFJ says nothing, that's when the world finally starts listening. If you've ever gone silent and watched people panic, remember, it wasn't you losing them. It was them realizing what they lost in you. Trust that silence. It's your intuition's highest form of speech. So take a breath, dear INFJ. Stay silent if peace asks you to. Because the right people won't panic in your silence, they'll find comfort in it. And those who panic? They were never listening anyway.